Let me ask you something. What's the most you ever lost in a coin toss?
Look, I need to know what I stand to win.
Everything. Just call it friendo.
McCarthy was born in Providence, Rhode Island, the 20th of July 1933. The third of 6 children, he grew up in Tennessee, where the family moved in 1937 to follow the work of his father, a successful lawyer. In Knoxville, he attended a Catholic school. Then, at the age of 18, he enrolled at the University of Tennessee, but he was never able to finish it. In 1979, he published Satry, a novel considered by several critics to be McCarthy's true masterpiece. But it is with the release of the novel No Country for Old Men that McCarthy makes himself known to a wider audience, even beyond national borders. His latest work is from 2007, The Road, the same year the novel won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction. McCarthy now lives in Tesuque, New Mexico, with his third wife Jennifer Winkley and his son John. He maintains a certain detachment from the literary and mundane world, which is rare for a writer of a great fame. The story takes place at the border between Texas and Mexico, in a country that has abandoned its old values, fell into a blind and uncontrolled violence. Such violence is embodied in Anton Chigurh, a psychopathic killer with a deadly weapon and a dangerous philosophy of justice. His opponent, a man of a forgotten past who cannot understand the ferocity of the present, Sheriff Bell. Both are looking for Llewellyn Moss, a Vietnam veteran who, while hunting antelopes on the Rio Grande, found himself where a bloody battle between drug traffickers took place. Battle that left the ground strewn with corpses. The man took his chance, but this turned out to be too big for him. The chase takes place along and beyond the border in a crescendo of suspense and violence. Moss' fate depends on which of the two pursuers finds him first. Written in a quick and dry style, raw and relentless as a premonition of tragedy, with incisive dialogues that make McCarthy's writings unique. This novel takes the reader back to the landscapes of the southeastern United States, populated by men who, if one would kill them all, he'd have to build an outbuilding in hell. No Country for Old Men was brought to the big screen by Joel and Ethan Coen, in a 4-time Academy Award-winning film. The film follows the plot of the book very much. It deviates minimally in a couple of points and completely cuts a subplot. In his escape, just before being killed, Moss loads on board a hitchhiker girl who falls in love with him, seeing everything like an exciting game, and she will end up murdered in the Motel 2. The film stays faithful to the grandeur of the landscapes while losing a little when it comes to the city settings. Moss' escape is in on the road in a country ravaged by poverty and social decay, even though in the book it is perceived much better. Moreover, no matter how hard it tries, the film fails to convey the idea of despair that is in the book. It seems that everything can be resolved in the best way, which makes you appreciate the twist, but it makes you lose an important part of the story. In the book, the situation is grim, and arriving with Moss killed like a dog by a couple of stoned Mexican kids armed with machine guns on the steps of a seedy, out-of-the-way motel seems like the only possible ending. This surround enhances Moss' will to live, his stubbornness, and his character. Another missing aspect is the feeling of being a stranger in an unknown land. Let me explain. In McCarthy's novels, entire dialogues are written in Mexican, making them incomprehensible to an English reader. But McCarthy uses them for this very reason, to make the protagonist understand that is a different word from the usual one. For us Italians, however, these passages, which remain in the original language in the translation, are not too difficult. But this is a problem with both the film and the book. It should perhaps be titled No Country for Anyone, to hear the words of Sheriff Ed Tom Bell, Tommy Lee Jones, facing the rising and unstoppable tide of an inhuman and totally meaningless crime. In the book, counterbalancing the cruelty of which the text is literate, there are the words that the sheriff says to his wife, his deputies, or simply to himself, when he observes, with disenchantment, how drugs and money are erasing all forms of humanity, starting with the things that seem simpler and more banal. The film gives a nod to these character notes. Tommy Lee Jones Bell does complain, as he does in the novel, that no one says sir or ma'am anymore, and express a few other sentiments of the get off my lawn variety. But the Coen script lands in a different place between Bell's jadedness. Near the end of the narrative, Bell visits his uncle Ellis, an infirm former deputy who recounts a story about another uncle who'd been gunned down nearly a century earlier. In the film, Elias tries to explain away Belle's ennui by telling him that the story illustrates how things have always been the same, and the present day seems only to be worse. As a reader of the novel, I could choose to draw the same conclusion, but Elias himself doesn't. And he doesn't have any great wisdom for Belle either. Instead, his comments throughout their chat express a deep dissatisfaction with his own life's trajectory. The idea that we have no control over our lives and that we only become more aware of this situation with age is the heart of McCarthy's novel. The film, however, seems to resist this notion. One of the only places where the coins tinkle with the plot occurs in the final confrontation between the arch-villain Kigurg, Javier Bardem, and Carla Jean Moss, Kelly MacDonald, our protagonist's wife. Kigurg lets Carla Jean flip a coin to potentially save her life, and in the book Carla Jean chooses heads, loses and gets killed. In the movie, however, Carla Jean refuses to take the coin flip, or if she does it happens off-screen, and Kigurg kills her only because he's following his own strange moral code. We are left wondering if, to preserve his principle, he might have killed her even if she'd won the coin toss. In the book, lives are ruled by randomness, and it seems plausible that McCarthy himself flipped a coin to determine Carla Jean's fate. The human impulse to create stories out of the events that make up our histories helps fight off the terrifying possibility that we are where we are for no good reason at all. McCarthy's novel faces up to that horror, and it's even worse than imagined. The Coen brothers can't resist pairing cause and effect. The reasons of the choice are relatively simple. Let's start with the author, Cormac McCarthy. Surely one of the greatest authors of contemporary Stars and Stripes fiction, and therefore a big shot also internationally and awarded of the Pulitzer Prize in 2007 for The Road. His fame and resonance on the international scene certainly influenced my choice. Despite this, the guiding reasons fall on the Coen brothers and the majestic Javier Bardem, for whom I have a proven love, artistically speaking. The love at first sight for the Coen brothers struck me when, as a teenager, I watched the cult film The Big Lebowski, and from there they began to give life to masterpieces of international caliber, including my favorites. Fargo, even though it was released earlier, unfortunately I discovered it later. The Man Who Was Not There, obviously No Country for Old Men, A Serious Man, Burn After Reading, True Grinta. Of all their films, I think they managed to give the best of themselves with No Country for Old Men. The film is truly appreciable. Great characters and well-chosen landscapes and sets. They managed to fully extract the characters and settings described by the author from the pages of the book. In addition, Javier Bardem's interpretation and the moral of the story, which applies very well even to our days, have had a considerable influence on the choice. One might suspect that McCarthy had a hand in ensuring the film adaptation stayed faithful, but in fact he had almost no role in Coen's production. The Coens knew what they had in McCarthy's story, and they knew his setting would translate to the screen. As a reader, there is only so much our imaginations can do, although McCarthy's delicious language is a picture unto itself. He has the best words, as some would say. My impression is that in general the film has a more convulsive and compressive trend. And I must say that Belle's reflection in the finale on the meaning of the work is missed a little. Despite this, the Coen brothers did a monumental job, remaining very faithful to McCarthy's tone. This perhaps also thanks to the careful and meticulous choice of the cast. In my opinion, the spearhead was Javier Bardem, who, with his fatal hairstyle, manages to convey the alienation of Anton Kigurg.